The Africans were supposed to die, like roaches that had been doused in an intoxicating insecticide. The Africans were not supposed to be able to understand the complexities of such a complicated disease, a mind-boggling pandemic, because our minds were thought to be too small, our level of comprehension embarrassingly basic. The Africans were supposed to continue spreading the virus because all we do is touch each other, overindulge in lovemaking with each other, and fall and fail at social experiments because we cannot follow simple instructions like social distancing and mask wearing. The Africans were supposed to inhale all of the corona poisoned air because our noses are big, ugly, and black, and with international borders closed, there was no way on earth that we could access enough nose masks, and we most certainly couldn't produce any for ourselves. The Africans were supposed to fumble with the stumble over COVID healthcare because our medical practitioners must definitely be an inferior breed, and we are poor and clueless anyway. The people died in droves, like roaches that had been intoxicated by an intoxicating insecticide. But it wasn't the Africans whose bodies were rotting along the streets of the world. And so if the COVID scholars failed us and we lived, then tell me what more, really what more do we as Africans need to see and to hear and to feel and to taste before we, the Africans, can control our own narratives and our own lives? Second piece, let's make love one last time. My belly drags me along with it. Not so long ago, my belly felt as though it were a colorful party balloon or a magical hot air balloon that could carry me thousands of miles and kilometers into the air. Sometimes, I felt as though my belly could fly me much faster and much more gently into space than the most experienced astronaut's rocket could. Forget the fatigue, the swollen ankles, and the sleepless nights. My belly was a beautiful reminder of the soul-grabbing love that we had made every night, every dawn, every 10 minutes during every lunch hour. And nothing could take away the joy that I felt in my heart and the arousal that I felt in my soul every time that your warm hands and the evidence of your own silky arousal flashed through my mind. Our love and our lovemaking were our life support. Then in one careless second, you forgot to remember the heat between my thighs and the milky taste of my fleshy lady parts. Then in that careless second, Corona took you away from me. How could you have been so foolish? How could you have allowed a tiny, inconspicuous piece of science to outsmart you like that? How could you leave me here with 2 shiny rings, an empty home, and a belly which you would never be able to touch after your daughter's birth would have deflated it? And now my belly drags me along with it. Not so long ago, my belly was a beautiful reminder of the soul-grabbing love that we had made every night, every dawn, and every 10 minutes during every lunch hour. And nothing could take the joy away from me that I felt in my heart, in my soul, every time that your warm hands and the evidence of your own silky arousal flashed through my mind. Because our love and our lovemaking, it was supposed to be our life support. So let's make love one last time. Just one last time. Or I may never be able to fully live so that I can in turn be the life support for our baby girl. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Apiorkor.
Hi.
Absolutely unbelievable. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you are poetry.
Well, poetry incarnate. You know?
Because it's just mind blowing. I mean, I just think of how you just, listen, guys, I have to tell you something, right? I've sat next to her.
Why are you dropping my keys here?
Oh, relax. I've sat next to her and watched her produce a piece that she'll perform for maybe 7 minutes, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. Sit down and write it in just a few minutes. It's done. And go and perform it just an hour later.
When David Citi and Frema Dunyami are your friends, you've got
No, but I mean, what's that got to do with me? I mean, I didn't do nothing, But yes, this is your new baby.
My new baby.
Yeah.
When the person
who is called COVID King.
Yeah.
You performed the pieces from that?
2 pieces from there. There are 30 pieces in there.
Wow.
All about COVID experiences.
Okay.
So 30 pieces of COVID verse journalism,
wow,
as I call it.
Okay, so yes, we went through COVID. It was a very trying time for all of us as a nation, as individuals, as communities, and so on and so forth. What was it that made you feel it was important to pen down your notes from the season of COVID?
So here's the thing, as a writer, as a poet, as an artist, I believe that we can't produce art just for the sake of it being beautiful. It should mean something. It should have social relevance. I believe that poetry for me is a window for social justice. That's how I do my activism. In fact, it's a lot of poetivism, or artivism, as we call it. So I may not necessarily get onto the streets for a protest, but I protest with my art. But I also document. I mentioned that I write verse journalism, and we work in media, so it sort of marries my 2 loves, There are lots of things that don't make it to the news for many reasons. Maybe it's just not newsworthy, according to what news may be defined as. Sometimes they're so personal and experience that you need people's permission to bring those stories to light. And then sometimes people just don't want to talk about what they're going through. So me as a poet, as a fly on the wall, as a person who is seeing and experiencing people's experiences through empathy, I document those things. And that's exactly what I did during COVID. It was therapeutic for me, I must admit, just putting some of these things down, because it's a lot, there's so much going on. But I also did it for posterity's sake. We would watch news items from other parts of the world. We would see celebrities and people of notability from different parts of the globe go on their social media, do news interviews, and talk about what they are going through with COVID. So, I contracted COVID, I lost this person, or this is what I'm dealing with. I have to be at home for this amount of time. But in Ghana and Africa, we weren't doing that.
No.
That's not what we do.
No.
We don't really talk about things. It's not our style. So I felt that somebody needed to somehow document the real stories beyond the statistics, beyond all the conversations about vaccines, about who was chopping which money when, beyond all that, behind the numbers, behind the carnage, what were people really going through? And that's what this book is a testament of. It's for posterity, for the future.
So let me ask, how long have you been working on this? I mean, I know that, yes, COVID was 2020, at least in Ghana, it was March 2020, but you didn't start then.
No.
So how long have you been working on this?
Out of the 30 pieces, there are at least maybe 11 of them that I wrote at the height of the pandemic. So things I was seeing in real time.
Rally Round the Flag.
Good. So what I performed at Rally Round the Flag, bleeding tributes, a tribute to health workers, the frontliners, and what they were going through.
By the way, that was the one that I was sitting with her.
Is that there?
And she literally wrote it as well. Rally Round the Flag. If you missed that, it's on YouTube. You can go back and go and watch it.
Check it out.
Yeah, but she literally wrote it to go and perform it, you know, and it was like her time is coming, his time is coming. And she's now writing the thing, and she went. It was just, I was mind blown, honestly.
So there's that one. That one is titled "Bleeding Tribute."
Okay.
Right, and that was really when people could even tell other people that they had COVID.
Yes.
Because the stigma was so.
I remember that time. You couldn't admit that you had COVID.
The stigma was so
like,
poisonous.
What are you saying?
You can't say that. You become, you know, some kind of recluse in the room.
Immediately, yeah.
You know, but then beyond that, I was taking notes, and of course, we're experiencing this in real time, and there are things that I knew I wanted to write about. Yeah. In fact, in putting this book together, and I started with my publishers maybe somewhere in December 2022, really compiling everything. But just 2 weeks ago, and this is after I was just supposed to be doing the final read. It was supposed to be 23 pieces. Yes. And I went through it and I thought, no, there are 7 stories that I feel I have to tell. So I told the publisher, please give me just 2 hours. I will write the 7 pieces for you. One of them speaks to suicide. It's called 90 Minutes. So a Ghanaian gentleman who has done everything right, studied hard, gone to school, believed in God, practiced all the good things a good citizen should practice. Then it gets to COVID, loses his job, falls into depression, dies, you know, and 90 minutes because he's a football fan. Okay. And there's a lot of that, you know, what we call illusion in there. Then you have another one in there, the COVID Scholars, which I just wrote. Yeah. This whole thing, you know, I throughout the pandemic and even up until now, I've been struggling with this whole narrative that, oh, the Africans were going to die. We're going to have the worst of it. I mean, even some of us believe that because we don't necessarily have faith in our governance system, in our healthcare systems. And
it's like if it's happening over there, goodness gracious, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah. Exactly, you know. So, but then that didn't happen. And we still can't really explain why or why not. But that's where the COVID Scholars came from. Yeah. And then there's another one in there too that talks about the vaccine politics. For me, I just saw it as Africa, you know, the new scramble for Africa. It wasn't about gold anymore. It wasn't about land and demarcating us into spaces that we had no control over. But now, how do we get the vaccines there first? Who gets to say, I gave Africa the most vaccines? And then we're sitting here and our leaders are not striking good deals on our behalf.
Let's go and help them. Yeah. How quickly can we
and we're feeding into that narrative. Our leaders are the people who are supposed to be leading us. We're doing that as well. You know, so it's just a medley of things. And then you have the piece like Let's Make Love One More Time, where I put myself in the shoes of a pregnant woman who loses her partner to COVID. How do you deal with something like that? You know, how do you come back from that? And indeed, COVID, we say we've moved on from it, but have we really? Have we really healed from it? Have we grieved? Have we allowed ourselves to really confront the things that face us as individuals? Because every other day I meet somebody and I can tell that the person is dealing with a brunt of that. And you combine it with our current economic situation and it's something that you can't even fathom.
Okay, in less than 3 minutes, please. That's all we have left. How do you do this?
Write poetry?
Yeah.
So I'll say, and I'll come from a teacher's perspective. Okay. There's no one way to write poetry. Okay. I mean, there are different poetic forms. You can talk about a sonnet, you can talk about a haiku. I won't go deeply into it. But if you want to write poetry, first thing, strong vocabulary. So you have to read in order to write. It's very important. That goes even beyond poetry. You're writing news articles, you're writing a novel, you need to read.
Good command of language.
Language, very important, regardless of the language you're writing in. Because poetry is about painting pictures with words. If you don't have the words to paint with, what are you using? It's like not having your paint or your paintbrush, right? Secondly, you need to allow yourself to feel the emotions. If you are thinking too hard about what the page looks like by the time you're done, or, oh, am I exposing myself too much? You can't write. It's a very vulnerable art. You need to put yourself in a position where you're telling, I don't care at this point what people decipher from what I write, whether they're able to read my thoughts or my emotions. I'm putting it all out there. And then the last thing, just write. A lot of people overthink it. Just write. I tell people, when you want to start writing poetry, start by journaling. And journaling doesn't mean you have to write beautiful verses. It can be a sentence. I feel sad today. It can be a word. dejected, because
Okay.
that's how I feel.
Yeah.
It can be an idea,
Okay.
heroism,
Okay.
or economics. You know, it can be a theory, quantum
So
physics.
really, it's just sitting down and allowing your thoughts to come on paper
That's it.
as they come.
As they come.
Just put it down.
So poetry is very similar to abstract painting.
Okay.
You know, and that's especially when you're starting out. I wouldn't say go in looking to write a Shakespearean sonnet.
Yeah.
You'll be
It
disappointed
doesn't work
in
like
yourself.
that.
No. Later on you
Yeah.
could do that and then try
Okay.
to do realism and all that. But if you're starting out, free verse, don't really inhibit yourself. Just try to create a picture
So
and
is this-
communicate.
Is this book out yet?
So we're launching it
Okay.
on Monday, the 11th of September. That's
This coming
just
Monday.
this coming
Okay.
Monday at the Alisa Hotel, Northridge, 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
If anybody wants to come, they're welcome to.
Okay.
And we'll be launching it. And that's when everybody gets to see
No,
it for the first
it's
time.
not. It's open. There's no ticket.
It's not ticketed.
Okay.
It's a book launch. Just come and experience it. However, you can pre-order on Amazon.
Okay.
If you just put it in when the person who's called COVID came, you find it. You can do a pre-order.
Yeah, you can
If
see it
you're
on
not
the
a hard
screens
copy
there.
person, there's also an ebook.
Okay.
Yes, so you can download it onto your Kindle,
Okay.
buy it, and all that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming
Thank you
through.
for
Thank you
having
for
me.
sharing. And it's exciting. A queen frozen in time.
Queen Frozen in Time.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to do the reading right now. If I did, it would be, yeah. Anyway, there's more to come on Breakfast Daily. Apiorkor, thank you very much.
Thank you for having
All
me,
right,
David.
okay.